Folks, here's the dark truth. Women don't bond to your status, they bond to the emotional aftertaste you leave in their body. My friend, if you're a man in your 40 seconds, 50 seconds or 60 seconds, you've lived this pain. You take her out, you do the right things, you pay, you listen, you stay respectful. She smiles, she texts back, maybe she even sleeps with you. And then she stays emotionally distant, no real investment. No chasing you, no attachment. You're left wondering what you missed. Most men assume attachment comes from being impressive, money, success, being the nice guy who never messes up. But that mindset turns you into a transaction, and women can feel transactional energy instantly. The moment she senses you need her approval, desire starts to cool. I'm not here to comfort you, I'm here to wake you up. Because there are men who create emotional attachment without trying, and it's not because they look better or earn more. It's because they occupy a different emotional position. They feel complete, so she feels safe enough to invest. In this video, I'll break down a real story that exposes the hidden mechanism behind female attachment, why need kills it, and how Stoic control over your reactions makes her lean in on her own. Stay with me, because this twist changes how you date forever. Let's get into it. Number 1. Attraction is not attachment. Folks, this is where most men confuse the entire game. Attraction and attachment are not the same thing. Attraction is a reaction. Attachment is an investment. A woman can be attracted to you and still feel nothing deeper. She can enjoy your company, your looks, even your intimacy, and never emotionally attach. That gap is where most men get stuck. My friend, attraction is light and fast. It comes and goes. Attachment is heavy. It takes time, safety, and emotional gravity. When men mistake attraction for attachment, they start acting too soon. They lean in. They explain. They seek reassurance. And that behavior quietly shuts attachment down before it ever forms. Let's make this real. James is 56 and meets Linda, who's 49, through friends in San Diego. Linda laughs at his jokes. She texts back. She agrees to dates. James assumes things are moving forward, but inside, Linda stays emotionally untouched. She enjoys James, but she doesn't invest. James feels the distance and starts trying harder. That effort makes things worse. Attraction was there. Attachment never had room to grow. Now compare that with another situation. Mark is 61 and meets Rachel, who's 52, at a coastal fundraiser in Maine. Rachel is mildly interested at first, nothing obvious. Mark doesn't rush. He stays present, steady, and non-reactive. He enjoys the interaction without pushing it forward. Over time, Rachel starts initiating. She checks in. She shares more. That's attachment forming. Not because Mark impressed her, but because he didn't need anything from her. This is the difference men miss. Attraction is about how you're perceived in the moment. Attachment is about how she feels when you're not there. Does she think about you? Does she invest emotionally? Does she move closer on her own? Those are attachment signals, and they only show up when she feels safe enough to invest. Most men try to earn attachment by increasing attraction. More dates, more compliments, more availability. That doesn't work. Attachment doesn't respond to more input. It responds to emotional positioning. When you act like you need her response to feel whole, she feels pressure. Pressure blocks investment. Here's another example. Paul is 58 and meets Denise, 50, at a casual dinner in Austin. Denise is drawn to Paul at first, but Paul starts checking in constantly. He asks where he stands. He seeks clarity too early. Denise pulls back. Attraction fades. Attachment never started. Paul thinks he lost her interest. In reality, he lost his emotional footing. Attachment grows when a woman feels she's choosing you, not being pulled toward you. That choice only happens when you're grounded enough to let uncertainty exist. When you're okay not being chosen yet. That's hard for most men, but it's essential. Stoic thinking applies here without quoting books. Control what's yours, your reactions, your pace, your emotional self-sufficiency. When you stop using attraction as proof of your worth, attachment has space to form naturally. If this sounds familiar, acknowledge it. Write this in the comments, I see the difference. Say it for yourself. Stay with me, folks. You don't want to miss what's next, because once you understand this, you'll see why chasing attraction is the fastest way to kill attachment. Number 2. Why she doesn't invest. Folks, when a woman doesn't invest emotionally, it's rarely because you lack value. It's because she doesn't feel safe placing emotional weight on you yet. Investment is not a reward for effort. It's a response to stability. And most men unknowingly communicate instability the moment they start seeking validation. My friend, investment only happens when a woman senses that you are already complete. When she feels that your mood, confidence, and direction are not dependent on her reactions. The instant she feels responsible for your emotional state, her instinct is to pull back, not out of cruelty, out of self-preservation. Here's the hard truth. Approval-seeking kills investment. The need to be reassured, to be chosen quickly, to be seen as enough, creates pressure. Pressure tells her nervous system that she's stepping into a role, not a connection. And no one wants to invest in managing another adult's emotional balance. Stoicism speaks clearly on this. Epictetus said, "If you want to improve, be content to be thought foolish and stupid." Applied here, it means being willing to not be chosen immediately, being willing to let uncertainty exist without scrambling to fix it. That restraint is not weakness, it's strength. Investment forms when a woman feels she's moving toward you by choice, not being pulled by your need, when your attention feels offered, not demanded, when your presence feels grounded, not searching. These are subtle differences, but they are felt instantly. Most men confuse availability with reliability. They think being always present shows commitment. In reality, emotional reliability comes from consistency, not constant access. A man who remains steady, whether she leans in or pulls back, communicates emotional leadership. Leadership invites investment. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." When a woman pauses, tests, or pulls back slightly, many men panic. They chase, they explain, they seek clarity. That reaction turns the obstacle into collapse. A centered man uses the pause to remain calm. That calm often draws her back without effort. Another key point: investment grows through contrast. When your energy doesn't spike with approval or crash with distance, you create a stable emotional field. Within that field, a woman can explore connection without fear. Fearless exploration is where attachment begins. Seneca warned that dependence is a form of slavery. Emotional dependence feels heavy, independence feels light. When your life, identity, and self-worth remain intact, regardless of her response, she feels free to invest. Freedom precedes attachment, not the other way around. This is why trying to earn investment backfires. Investment isn't logical, it's instinctive. It emerges when she senses that being close to you would add to her life, not become something she has to manage. Let this land. If you've ever felt yourself wanting reassurance instead of staying grounded, acknowledge it. Write this in the comments: I release the need. Keep it simple. It's for you. Don't go anywhere. Miss the next part and you'll keep repeating the same mistake without realizing it. Number 3. The approval trap. Folks, this is the quiet mistake that destroys attachment faster than anything else. The approval trap. It doesn't look desperate on the surface. It looks polite, considerate, even confident. But underneath it carries one message that a woman's nervous system reads instantly. I need you to confirm me. My friend, approval seeking is subtle. It shows up in checking reactions, over-explaining, filling silence, and adjusting yourself to keep her comfortable. None of this feels aggressive, but it creates pressure. And pressure collapses emotional attachment before it has a chance to form. Here's a real situation. Brian is 59 and meets Carol, who's 51, through mutual friends in Minneapolis. Brian listens closely, agrees often, and keeps things smooth. Every time Carol pulls back slightly, Brian leans in with reassurance. He compliments. He explains his intentions. He tries to keep the mood warm. Carol stays pleasant, but something inside her shuts down. She feels like she's being asked to approve him emotionally. That feeling makes her withdraw. Now look at the contrast. Daniel is 62 and meets Susan, 54, at a charity dinner in Charleston. Daniel is engaged, but not adjusting himself to Susan's reactions. When she's warm, he enjoys it. When she's quiet, he stays grounded. He doesn't rush to fix the moment. Susan notices something different. She doesn't feel responsible for his mood. That freedom makes her lean in over time. The approval trap works like this. The more you seek validation, the more you hand emotional control to the other person. Women sense that imbalance immediately. When a man needs approval, he places himself below her emotionally. That position feels unstable, and instability blocks attachment. Another example, Mark is 55 and meets Linda, 47, during a walking group in Boulder. Mark laughs easily but watches Linda's reactions closely. When she doesn't respond enthusiastically, he shifts topics. He tries harder. Linda feels like she's being monitored. That monitoring kills her desire to invest emotionally. Mark thinks he's being attentive. What he's doing is asking for permission to feel okay. Compare that to James, 61, meeting Rachel, 53, on a casual group hike in Sedona. James shares, listens, and stays relaxed regardless of Rachel's responses. When the conversation slows, he lets it. Rachel notices she feels calm around him. She starts initiating later. Attachment begins because James didn't ask for approval. He offered presence. Here's the deeper truth. Approval seeking turns connection into a transaction. You give attention in exchange for reassurance. Women feel that exchange even if it's never spoken. And when they feel it, they protect themselves by pulling back. Attachment grows when a woman feels she can invest without managing your emotions. When your mood doesn't rise and fall with her reactions. When you enjoy her presence but don't depend on it. That independence is not cold. It's grounding. Most men don't realize they're doing this. They think they're being respectful, but respect without self-trust becomes self-abandonment. And self-abandonment never creates attachment. If you've caught yourself checking reactions or seeking reassurance, acknowledge it. Write this in the comments. I drop approval. Say it for yourself. Stay with me, folks. You don't want to miss what's next, because the next part reveals exactly how need quietly kills desire without either of you realizing it. Number 4. When need kills desire. Folks, need is the silent killer of desire. Not obvious desperation, not begging. The quiet internal need to be chosen, validated, or reassured. Women feel it immediately, even when you never say a word about it. And the moment need is felt, desire starts to collapse. My friend, need changes your energy before it changes your behavior. Your tone tightens, your timing speeds up, your attention starts hovering. You begin watching her reactions instead of staying present. None of this looks dramatic, but to her nervous system, it feels heavy. Heavy energy signals pressure. Pressure tells her body to protect itself, not invest. Here's the hard truth. Desire cannot grow where need is present, because need shifts the emotional burden onto her. When a woman senses that your emotional balance depends on her response, she instinctively steps back. Not to punish you, to preserve herself. Stoicism has been warning men about this for centuries. Epictetus said, "If you seek tranquility, do less," or more precisely, do what is essential. Need is doing too much internally. It's attaching your sense of worth to an outcome you don't control. The Stoic path is simple. Regulate yourself first. Everything else follows. Most men misunderstand this and think the solution is to hide need. That doesn't work. Need isn't about what you show, it's about what you carry. You can act confident and still feel needy, and her body will read what you carry, not what you perform. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The happiness of your life depends upon the quality of your thoughts." When your thoughts revolve around being accepted, chosen, or approved, your presence becomes unstable. That instability is felt as emotional risk. Desire does not move toward risk, it moves toward safety. Here's where many men go wrong. They confuse desire with attention. They think if she's texting, engaging, or sleeping with them, desire is secure. So when that attention dips, panic sets in. They push, they ask questions, they seek clarity. That reaction exposes need, and the dip turns into a withdrawal. Need also makes men overinvest early. They give too much time, too much explanation, too much emotional access before it's earned. Seneca warned that he who indulges in excess is guilty of weakness. Emotional excess is still excess. When you give more than the moment calls for, you signal imbalance. Desire responds to self-sufficiency, not emotional distance, self-sufficiency. The feeling that you enjoy connection but you don't require it to feel whole. When a woman senses that you would be fine whether she stays or goes, her nervous system relaxes. Relaxation allows curiosity. Curiosity allows attachment to form later. This is the paradox. The less you need desire, the more room desire has to appear. The more you try to secure it, the faster it disappears. Stoicism teaches acceptance of uncertainty. When you accept uncertainty, instead of fighting it, your energy steadies. That steadiness is what women feel as strength. Another crucial point. Need makes you reactive. Non-need makes you responsive. Reactivity feels unpredictable. Responsiveness feels grounded. Grounded men don't chase shifts in energy, they observe them. That observation creates emotional leadership, and leadership invites investment. If you want to eliminate need, don't focus on women, focus on regulation. Slow your reactions, question your impulses. Ask yourself why you want to reach out, explain, or push forward. That pause alone weakens need. If this is resonating, mark it internally. Write this in the comments. I release need. Simple, direct. And before we move on, if you want deeper work on emotional regulation, restraint, and building a grounded masculine core, consider becoming a channel member. That's where we go beyond surface advice and work on real internal mastery. Let's keep going, folks, because next you'll see how safety, not attraction, is what truly anchors a woman emotionally. Number 5. The man she feels safe with. Folks, safety is the foundation most men misunderstand. They hear the word and think it means boring, predictable, or harmless. That's not what safety means to a woman. Safety means emotional steadiness. It means she can relax her guard around you without feeling responsible for your reactions. And when that happens, attachment finally has somewhere to land. My friend, a woman doesn't attach to the man who excites her the most. She attaches to the man whose presence calms her nervous system while still holding quiet strength. That balance is rare, and rarity is what creates value. Here's a real situation. Thomas is 58 and meets Julia, who's 50, through a mutual friend in Seattle. On paper, Thomas isn't flashy. He's confident but reserved. During their first few conversations, Julia tests him subtly. She pulls back, gets quieter, even delays responding once. Thomas doesn't chase. He doesn't punish. He stays consistent. His tone doesn't change. Julia notices something unusual. She doesn't feel like she has to manage his emotions. That feeling of safety makes her open up more. Attachment starts forming there, not during excitement, but during steadiness. Now compare that with another scenario. Kevin is 56 and meets Rachel, 48, at a wine tasting in Napa. Kevin is charismatic and engaging, but emotionally reactive. When Rachel is warm, he's upbeat. When she cools slightly, he becomes tense and distant. Rachel senses that her behavior affects Kevin's mood. That's when she stops investing. Desire fades because safety disappears. Safety isn't created by reassurance. It's created by predictability in your emotional state. When a woman can predict that you'll remain grounded regardless of her mood, she relaxes. Relaxation invites trust. Trust invites attachment. Another example. Mark is 62 and meets Ellen, 54, during a coastal walk in Rhode Island. Ellen shares something personal. Mark listens without interrupting, fixing, or escalating the moment. He doesn't rush intimacy. He lets the conversation end naturally. Ellen later realizes she felt unusually calm around him. That calm wasn't passive. It came from Mark's self-control, his ability to stay present without needing more. Here's the key. Safety does not mean lack of polarity. It means emotional leadership. A man who feels safe is not asking for permission to exist. He is anchored in himself. Women feel that anchor immediately. Most men think safety comes from explaining intentions. It doesn't. It comes from consistency. Saying what you mean, doing what you say, and not collapsing when uncertainty appears. When you can handle silence, pauses, and mixed signals without reacting, you signal strength. Another situation makes this clear. David is 55 and meets Monica, 47, at a community event in Denver. Monica tests boundaries lightly. David responds calmly without defensiveness. Monica later initiates contact. She felt safe enough to move toward him because he didn't need her to behave a certain way. Safety also allows desire to deepen over time. Without safety, attraction burns fast and fades. With safety, attraction matures into attachment. That's why men who feel safe often hear, "I don't know why, but I feel comfortable with you." That sentence is the doorway to emotional investment. If you recognize this difference, mark it for yourself. Write this in the comments: I choose steadiness. Let's keep going, folks, because the next part explains why emotional positioning matters more than anything you say or do. Number 6. Emotional positioning matters. Folks, emotional positioning is the invisible frame that decides everything before words ever land. It's not what you say, it's where you stand emotionally in relation to her, above, below, or centered. And only one of those positions invites attachment. My friend, when a man positions himself below emotionally, he seeks approval. He watches reactions. He adjusts himself to keep the connection alive. That position feels unstable. When a man positions himself above, he performs detachment or dominance. That can spark interest briefly, but it rarely creates attachment. The position that lasts is centered, grounded, self-contained. That's where safety and desire intersect. Stoicism speaks directly to this. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "If you are distressed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but to your estimate of it." Emotional positioning is about that estimate. When her response determines your inner state, you've positioned yourself below. When you remain steady regardless, you stay centered. Most men don't realize they shift position constantly. A warm text lifts them. A delayed reply drops them. That movement is felt. Emotional volatility signals risk. Risk blocks investment. A woman doesn't want to feel like she's steering your emotional weather. Here's the core principle. Attachment forms upward. Women attach to men who feel emotionally complete, not emotionally hungry. That doesn't mean cold. It means self-regulated. When your mood, pace, and confidence don't hinge on her behavior, she senses strength. Strength feels safe. Epictetus said, "First say to yourself what you would be, and then do what you have to do. If you see yourself as centered, your actions follow. You respond instead of react. You listen without collapsing. You enjoy connection without needing it to validate you. That is emotional leadership. Men often confuse emotional availability with emotional dependence. Availability says, "I'm open." Dependence says, "I need." One invites closeness, the other creates pressure. Pressure is the fastest way to slide into a lower emotional position. Another mistake is trying to reposition through explanation. Men explain intentions, clarify feelings, ask where they stand. All of that signals uncertainty. Uncertainty pulls you down emotionally. When you stop explaining and start embodying steadiness, positioning corrects itself. Seneca warned, "No man is more unhappy than he who never faces adversity." Emotional positioning is tested during adversity. When she pulls back, when signals go quiet, when ambiguity appears. If you stay centered there, attachment begins quietly. If you chase clarity, it collapses. Here's the paradox. When you don't need her to move closer, she feels free to do so. Freedom invites choice. Choice creates investment. Investment builds attachment. That sequence only works when your emotional position is stable. Positioning also shows up in boundaries. Centered men have them without defending them. They say less. They move slower. They don't negotiate their worth. That calm certainty changes how a woman relates to them over time. This is why emotional positioning matters more than charm, money, or even attraction. It determines whether connection feels safe enough to deepen. Without it, everything stays surface level. If this lands, mark it for yourself. Write this in the comments: I stay centered. Keep it simple. Let's keep going, folks. Because the next part explains why her pulling away is often the moment attachment quietly begins. Number 7. Why she pulls away. Folks, when a woman pulls away, most men panic. They assume they did something wrong or that interest is gone. In reality, pulling away is often a response, not a rejection. It's her nervous system reacting to pressure, imbalance, or emotional overload. If you misunderstand this moment, you destroy attachment. If you handle it right, attachment can actually begin here. My friend, women pull away when emotional intensity rises faster than safety. When connection deepens too quickly, her instinct is to create space. Not because she dislikes you, but because her system needs to regulate. Men who chase during this phase turn a pause into a permanent distance. Here's a real situation. Andrew is 57 and meets Melissa, who's 49 inches, Phoenix. They connect easily and spend several long evenings talking. Andrew feels momentum and starts texting more, checking in daily, asking where things are going. Melissa begins replying slower. Andrew notices and doubles down. He sends reassurance, explanations, and emotional questions. Melissa pulls further away. What Andrew felt as closeness, Melissa felt as pressure. Now contrast that with another scenario. Robert is 61 and meets Elaine, who's 53, during a volunteer project in Asheville. They share good conversations and subtle chemistry. After a strong weekend interaction, Elaine becomes quieter. Robert notices but doesn't react. He maintains his rhythm. When Elaine reaches out days later, Robert responds calmly. Elaine feels relief instead of pressure. Her pullback resolved itself because Robert didn't chase it. This is the pattern. Pulling away is often a test of emotional leadership. Women watch how you handle uncertainty. If you collapse emotionally, they feel unsafe. If you stay grounded, they relax and often return. Another example, Michael is 55 and meets Karen, who's 47, at a professional conference in Denver. After initial excitement, Karen pauses communication. Michael resists the urge to fix it. He stays engaged in his life. When Karen reconnects, she feels more curious than before. The space allowed her feelings to reorganize. Most men believe pulling away means loss of attraction. Often, It means attraction is reorganizing. Desire does not move in a straight line, it pulses. When men try to flatten that rhythm, they kill it. Pulling away also happens when a woman senses emotional dependency. If she feels responsible for your mood, she steps back. Space restores balance. When you allow that space, you show self-sufficiency. Self-sufficiency is calming. Another situation makes this clear. Thomas is 63 and meets Lisa, 55, during a social group in Santa Fe. Lisa shares deeply, then suddenly becomes distant. Thomas doesn't interrogate the shift. He stays consistent. Weeks later, Lisa opens up again, more invested than before. Thomas didn't react to the pullback. That restraint made the difference. Here's the key lesson. Pulling away is information, not instruction. It tells you to slow down, not to chase. When you honor that signal, you position yourself as emotionally stable. Stability invites trust. Men who win here understand timing. They let silence exist. They don't rush clarity. They don't punish distance. They stay steady. That steadiness becomes the anchor she returns to. If you've ever chased when she pulled back, acknowledge it. Write this in the comments. I stay grounded. Don't go anywhere, folks. The next part reveals how non-reactivity quietly creates the pull most men try to force. Number 8. Non-reactivity creates pull. Folks, non-reactivity is one of the most misunderstood forces in attraction. Men hear it and think it means being cold or indifferent. That's wrong. Non-reactivity means you feel everything, but you don't let feelings drive your behavior. When you master that, something subtle happens. The emotional gravity shifts toward you. My friend, most attraction dies in reaction. A delayed reply triggers anxiety. A mixed signal triggers explanation. A moment of distance triggers pursuit. Each reaction leaks emotional need. And need, as you now understand, weakens desire. Non-reactivity does the opposite. It communicates inner stability. Stability creates pull. Stoicism has always emphasized this. Epictetus said, "It is not things themselves that disturb us, but our judgments about them." In relationships, that judgment shows up as urgency. When you stop treating every signal as a verdict, your nervous system calms. That calm is felt. Women respond to what is felt, not what is said. Here's the core idea. Non-reactivity removes pressure from the interaction. When pressure disappears, curiosity has room to grow. Curiosity is the bridge between attraction and attachment. Without it, everything stays flat. With it, she starts leaning in on her own. Most men react because they're outcome-focused. They want certainty. They want reassurance. They want to know where they stand. Non-reactivity accepts ambiguity without collapsing. That acceptance communicates confidence without arrogance. It says, "I'm present, but I'm not controlled by this moment." Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events." Realize this, and you will find strength. Non-reactivity is that strength in action. When her mood shifts, you don't mirror it. When energy dips, you don't rush to fix it. You remain steady. Steadiness creates contrast. Contrast creates attraction. Another truth most men miss. Non-reactivity allows her emotions to complete themselves. When you interrupt her process with reassurance or pursuit, you stop that completion. When you allow space, her feelings reorganize. Often they deepen, not because you pushed, but because you didn't. Seneca warned against emotional slavery. No man is free who is not master of himself. Reactivity is emotional slavery. You hand control to the moment. Non-reactivity keeps control internal. That internal control is what women read as quiet dominance. This doesn't mean silence or withdrawal. It means proportion. You respond, but you don't over-respond. You engage, but you don't chase. You listen, but you don't plead. Your actions stay aligned with your values, not her fluctuations. That alignment feels rare. Rarity creates pull. Men often fear non-reactivity because they think it risks losing connection. In reality, reactivity is what loses it. When you stop reacting, you stop signaling fear of loss. That absence of fear relaxes her nervous system. Relaxation allows desire to breathe. Here's the paradox. When you don't rush to secure connection, connection often secures itself. When you don't chase clarity, clarity emerges naturally. When you don't try to manage her emotions, she feels free to invest. Freedom is the soil where attachment grows. Non-reactivity also protects your self-respect. You don't overextend. You don't abandon your pace. You don't betray your standards for attention. That self-respect is felt long before it's understood. If this resonates, mark it. Write this in the comments, I stay steady. Let's keep going, folks. Because the next part shows how investment, not attraction, is what finally locks emotional attachment in place. Number 9. How investment builds attachment. Folks, attachment doesn't come from attraction alone. It comes from investment. Not your investment, hers. And this is where most men get it backwards. They pour in effort, time, attention, and emotion, hoping attachment will follow. But attachment forms when she starts putting something in. Emotionally, mentally, and eventually behaviorally. My friend, people attach to what they invest in. When a woman invests, she justifies that investment internally. Her mind begins to create meaning. That meaning becomes attachment. You cannot force this process. You can only create the conditions where it happens naturally. Let's make this concrete. Steve is 60 and meets Karen, who's 52, at a charity board meeting in Atlanta. Steve enjoys her company, but doesn't rush anything. He's consistent, present, and calm. Over time, Karen starts initiating conversations. She shares personal stories. She checks in between meetings. Steve hasn't changed his behavior. Karen has. Her investment has begun, and with it, her attachment deepens. Now look at the opposite. Alan is 57 and meets Beth, 49, through a dating app in San Jose. Alan texts constantly, plans everything, reassures often. Beth enjoys the attention but doesn't invest. She responds but she doesn't initiate. Alan feels confused. He thinks he's building attachment. In reality, he's blocking it. There's no room for Beth to invest, so there's nothing for her to attach to. Investment shows up in small ways first. Initiating contact, remembering details, making time, emotional openness. These behaviors matter more than chemistry. Chemistry can exist without attachment. Investment cannot. Another example. George is 63 and meets Linda, 55, during a walking group in Naples, Florida. George listens more than he speaks. He doesn't chase momentum. Linda begins to adjust her schedule to walk on the same days. That choice matters. It's effort. That effort creates emotional weight. Emotional weight becomes attachment. Here's the key principle. When a woman invests, she feels agency. She feels like she's choosing, not being pulled. That choice is empowering. Empowerment increases emotional commitment. When men overinvest early, they steal that agency. And without agency, attachment stalls. Men often misread this and think pulling back means losing interest. But strategic restraint invites investment. When you leave space, she fills it. When you stop doing everything, she starts doing something. That shift is crucial. Another situation. Robert is 54 and meets Monica, 46, at a professional conference in Boston. After a good conversation, Robert doesn't follow up immediately. When Monica reaches out days later, Robert responds warmly but doesn't escalate. Monica suggests meeting again. That suggestion matters. It's her investment. From there, her attachment grows steadily. Attachment also strengthens when investment feels earned. When she invests because she wants to, not because she feels obligated or pressured. Obligation creates resentment. Choice creates attachment. If you want to know where you stand, don't look at what you're giving. Look at what she's giving. Time, attention, emotional energy. Those are the real indicators. If this resonates, acknowledge it. Write this in the comments: I let her invest. Keep going with me, folks. Because the final piece shows how becoming the emotional anchor changes everything about how women bond to you. Number 10. Become the emotional anchor. Folks, this is the final shift, and it's the one that changes everything. Becoming the emotional anchor means you are the stable point in the interaction, the place her emotions can settle instead of collide. You are not chasing connection, and you are not withholding it either. You are steady. And steadiness is what allows emotional attachment to lock in. My friend, an emotional anchor is not the loudest man in the room. He's not the most impressive on paper. He's the man whose internal state doesn't swing with every signal. When things feel good, he enjoys them. When things feel uncertain, he remains calm. That calm becomes a reference point. Over time, she begins to orient herself around it. Most men try to become unforgettable by standing out. Anchors don't stand out, they stand firm, and firmness creates trust. Trust creates emotional gravity. Emotional gravity is what pulls attachment toward you without effort. Let's look at a real situation. Jonathan is 61 and meets Michelle, who's 53, through a shared volunteer project in Vermont. Jonathan doesn't rush familiarity. He doesn't escalate emotionally just because moments feel good. When Michelle shares something personal, Jonathan listens without fixing or reacting strongly. When she pulls back, he doesn't chase. Over weeks, Michelle notices something different. Jonathan feels consistent. She knows what emotional tone she'll get from him. That predictability makes her feel safe enough to open deeper. Attachment forms quietly without drama. Now contrast that with another case. Eric is 58 and meets Dana, 50, at a professional networking group in Los Angeles. Eric is engaging but emotionally inconsistent. Some days he's warm and open. Other days he's distant or needy. Dana never knows where she stands. Instead of anchoring to Eric, she keeps emotional distance. Inconsistency prevents attachment. Being an emotional anchor also means you don't rush outcomes. You allow time to do its work. You don't demand clarity. You don't push for labels. You trust the process because you trust yourself. That trust removes pressure. Pressure is the enemy of attachment. Another example. William is 64 and meets Laura, 56, during a regular walking group in Charleston. William shows up the same way each time. Calm, present, interested, but not dependent. Laura begins to adjust her schedule to see him more. She initiates conversations. She shares concerns. William hasn't changed tactics. Laura has changed her level of investment, the anchor held. Here's what most men miss. Emotional anchoring is built internally first. If your sense of worth depends on her attention, you cannot anchor anyone. You'll drift with every emotional wave. Anchors are self-weighted. They don't need external validation to stay in place. Anchors also know when to let moments end. They don't overstay emotional highs. They don't drag out connection until it loses shape. They allow endings to be clean. Clean endings create anticipation. Anticipation feeds attachment. Over time, women attach to anchors because anchors feel reliable, not boring. Reliable. Reliability allows vulnerability. Vulnerability deepens emotional bonds. That's how attachment matures instead of burning out. So the work isn't about techniques. It's about regulation, pacing, self-respect. When you master those, attachment becomes a natural response to who you are, not what you do. That's the final truth, folks. Become the emotional anchor, and connection stops being something you chase. It becomes something that finds you. Folks, let's close this out. Today you learned why attraction alone is never enough, how approval and need quietly kill desire, and why emotional safety, restraint, and investment are what actually create attachment. Most importantly, you saw how becoming emotionally centered and steady turns you into the anchor women naturally attach to without chasing, forcing, or performing. If you want to go deeper into this work and build real emotional control, clarity, and masculine grounding, consider becoming a channel member. That's where we take these ideas further and apply them at a higher level. And if this video helped you see relationships more clearly, make sure you're subscribed to the channel so you don't miss what's coming next. Thank you for watching, folks. I appreciate your time. I'll see you again tomorrow.